Welcome back. I heard this quote a while back, and it really got me thinking. And the quote goes like this. They say, don't cross oceans for people who wouldn't cross a puddle for you. But what if that advice is wrong? What if the answer isn't to become less loving, less generous, less compassionate, or less willing to show up? What if the lesson is actually this: cross oceans, give freely, love deeply, and show up fully? But stop standing on the shore, looking back, waiting for someone else to cross it the way you did. Because maybe the problem isn't that you love too much, or care too much, or give too much. Maybe the problem is you're expecting everyone else to love the way you love. And they don't. And they may never. And that's okay. Because the goal isn't to love less. The goal is to stop expecting other people to swim at your depth. So I ask you, would you still cross the ocean? And that's the question. Would you still cross the ocean for someone if you knew they would never cross a puddle for you? And think about that. Honestly, really think about it. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that love should be measured. I did this for you. You didn't do that for me. I showed up. You didn't. I called. You never called. I would do anything for you, and you wouldn't do the same for me. And eventually, we end up keeping score. Who gave more? Who cared more? Who sacrificed more? Who reached out first? Who apologized? Who stayed? Who left? And somewhere in that scoreboard, we lose the beauty of simply being the kind of person we were meant to be. Like I said, you've probably heard the saying, don't cross oceans for people who wouldn't cross a puddle for you. And I understand this statement. I really do. Because there comes a time when you have to stop pouring yourself into relationships that continuously drain you. There comes a time when boundaries matter, and there comes a time when reciprocity matters. But today I want to challenge one part of that message. What if crossing the ocean was never the problem? What if expecting them to cross too was? Because maybe your heart is deep. Maybe you naturally give. You remember birthdays, you check in, you notice when somebody's struggling, and you show up. You listen, you encourage, you forgive. You make that extra effort. You love loudly and deeply and strongly. You love quietly. You love when no one is watching. And maybe you've been hurt because you assumed, if I would do it for you, surely you'd do it for me. But the truth is, that's not how people work. People don't love according to your operating system. They love according to theirs. And here's the final shift I want you to take into this episode. Don't become less of who you are because someone couldn't meet you there. Just cross the ocean. Don't drown trying to make someone else appreciate the water. So around this whole conversation, there's a big struggle. And that's when giving starts to hurt. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from being a giver. You don't necessarily regret what you did. You regret that it didn't seem to matter. You think, after everything I've done, how could they? I would never treat them that way. Why wasn't I worth the same effort? And that's where resentment begins. Not because you gave, but because you gave with an invisible contract attached. And you didn't say the contract out loud, but somewhere inside it said, I'll give you this. And one day, when I need it, you'll give it back. And when they don't, you feel pain, you feel anger, and you feel disappointment. And you withdraw. And something in you says, fine, I won't do anything for anyone anymore. That's the dangerous lesson. Because someone else's inability to give back can trick you into abandoning your own nature. You could become guarded. You could stop trusting. You could stop reaching out. You could stop being vulnerable. And you could stop caring deeply. And you could tell yourself, I learned my lesson. But did you? Or did you simply become a smaller version of yourself? It's interesting. There was a lot of years ago before I ended up doing a lot of healing work and going, like leaving the work I was doing and going into the work I'm doing now, going back to school. I remember I was working with a healthcare professional and was telling them that I wanted to do something along this lines. I wanted to do something that had a real positive impact on people. And she said something to the effect that this is probably not the best time for you to do this. And I'm like, why? It's like, she said, because you become the wounded healer. And I didn't really understand what she meant by that. But now I do. Had I not done all the healing work that I did, had I been giving from a place of being wounded myself and trying to fix my own wounds, I would end up resenting the people I was giving to. But because I spent all that time working through all my things to the point where I didn't have massive wounds in myself, now I give freely and I don't expect something back. I'm grateful for that advice, but at the time I didn't understand it. Recently I recorded an episode, I released an episode, and this speaks really big. If you don't heal, you'll bleed on people who never cut you. Like I said, you're going to sit there and say, I learned my lesson. But did you? Or did you become a smaller version of yourself? Tell the story honestly. Don't make yourself the hero. Don't make the other person the villain. Focus on what you expected, what you felt, and what you learned. How eventually you realize that generosity without expectation is different from generosity hoping to be repaid. So let's reframe this. See, honestly, you don't have to love less. Let's change the language. Instead of, I need to stop giving so much, try, need to stop giving with expectations attached. And that's a huge difference. Instead of, I'm never doing that for anyone again, try, I'm going to continue being generous, but I'm going to become more discerning about where I invest my energy. Instead of, they don't deserve my love, try. Their response doesn't determine the value of the love I gave. Hear that again. Their response doesn't determine the value of the love I gave. Because here's something powerful. Your generosity says everything about you and nothing about them. Your kindness says something about you. Your willingness to show up says something about you. Your capacity to forgive says something big about you. Your willingness to cross the ocean says something about you. It doesn't automatically create a debt that they owe you. And, this is hard because we want fairness. We want balance. We want, I give you 10, you give me back 10. But relations aren't spreadsheets. People have different capacities, different histories, different fears, different emotional awareness, and different ways of communicating. Different definitions of love, different levels of courage, and different depths, different ocean. A lot of years ago, I learned this language of love, right? And we all sit around expecting our language of love to be aligned with everyone else's. So sometimes people are saying, I love you, and you don't hear it as that. You hear it as something different. If you had a parent that was really hard on you, you really got to know them, and they had a strong belief that the world was a really tough and scary place. And the only way you could survive is if you were tough. And they really, really, really picked on you and worked really hard to make you strong. And the truth is, they were saying, I love you. It just didn't sound like that because that was their language of love. I'm reminded of my father when I was younger. I hadn't had a relationship in a very long time because I didn't want to use a human being for my physical needs. I wanted to meet someone, connect at a different level. And if I couldn't, I would stay alone. And my dad, he'd always call me up and he'd go like, why don't you go get yourself a woman? And I'm like, I get so pissed off. Like, do you have no idea who I am or who I want to be in this world? And so I'd come back with anger. And I think one time I said, just go out and get another notch on your belt like you, Dad? And he goes, oh, that hit pretty hard. And then I was doing a course and they were talking about the language of love. And I realized that my dad's language of love was like how he felt great in the world was to be in an intimate relationship that made everything feel like it made sense, that was where his happiness was. So the next time he said something along those lines, all I said to him was, thanks, Dad. I know you love me and I know you want me to be happy. And the strangest thing happened. He never said anything like that again. And that's one of those signs when you really hear somebody's language of love, and you stop fighting their language of love and you accept it, it disappears as a problem. I've said a lot of times, resistance causes persistence and acceptance causes disappearance. And sometimes it's that powerful. So let's think about this. We need to stop expecting people to swim at our depth. And this is completely the heart of this episode. Stop expecting people to swim at your depth. Some people live in inches. You live in miles. Some people communicate with a text. You communicate with presence. Some people say, let me know if you need anything, and move on. And you hear, I'll come over. We'll figure it out. Some people love through words, others through actions. Some people don't know how to express what they feel. Some people have never been taught, and some people are still learning, and it doesn't matter what their age is. Some people are fighting battles that you'll never know about, and some people are simply living with the fact that they don't have the capacity to meet you where you are. And that doesn't make them bad, but it may make them incompatible with the depth you're seeking. And that's an important distinction. You don't have to hate someone because they can't swim where you swim. You don't have to dislike them. You don't have to make them wrong. You simply need to stop expecting them to become something they're not and accept them as they are. Acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is reality clearly. That's powerful. Acceptance doesn't mean I have to keep allowing this. It means I finally see this relationship for what it is. And once you see clearly, you can choose clearly. Like I said with my dad, as soon as I realized that's his language of love, then it didn't have the same impact on me anymore. Because he was just saying, I love you. And his language he was using wasn't the same as mine. Let's talk about the ocean principle. We give because giving is who we are. And here's your framework. Cross the ocean. If you want to show up, show up. If you want to help, help. If you want to encourage someone, encourage them. If you want to tell someone you love them, just tell them. If you want to apologize, apologize. If you want to celebrate someone, celebrate. Don't let fear, the fear of not having what you gave return, turn you into someone you don't recognize. Number 2, drop the scoreboard. Stop counting. Stop. I called 3 times. They called once. I drove 2 hours. They drove 20 minutes. Stop measuring your worth through their effort. Because the moment generosity becomes a competition, it stops feeling like generosity. Read the capacity. This is number 3. This is where discernment enters, right? Giving freely doesn't mean giving endlessly. You can have a huge heart and strong boundaries. You can love someone and say no. You can care about someone and create distance. You can forgive someone and never give them the same access again. You can cross the ocean for someone once and recognize that they don't belong on your passenger list. Even a big heart needs a gift. 4, give from abundance, not from scarcity. And here's the difference. I want to give. And I have to give. So they'll love me. One is generosity, the other is self-abandonment. You ask yourself, am I giving because this reflects who I am? Or am I giving because I'm terrified they won't stay if I don't? And that's a completely different question. 5, let people show you who they are. Stop trying to convince people to value you. Stop auditioning, stop over-explaining, stop proving, observe, listen, watch. Let their actions give you information. You don't need to chase clarity. Sometimes you just need to stop interrupting the evidence. And this is the heartbreaking part, because the moment we turn love into a transaction, sometimes we say, I'm giving without expectations, but secretly we expect. We expect appreciation, we expect recognition, loyalty, reciprocity, gratitude. And when it doesn't arrive, we feel betrayed. So ask yourself, if no one thanked me, would I still want to do this? And if the answer is yes, that's freedom. And if the answer is no, that's information. Neither answer makes you a bad person. It simply tells you what's happening inside you. So maybe it's time to become the person you want to be. And here's where everything changes. Stop asking, what did they do for me? Start asking, who do I want to be? The first one could be your inner critic, but the second one is your inner advocate. And your inner advocate doesn't say, they didn't appreciate me, so become cold. Your inner advocate says, stay kind, get wiser. It says, stay generous, get discerning. It says, keep your heart open, strengthen your boundary. It says, love deeply, deeply. But expect realistically. Don't let someone's shallow water convince you that your ocean is a problem. You don't need to apologize for death, and you don't need to become emotionally smaller. You don't need to pretend you don't care, and you don't need to harden yourself because someone mishandled it. You just need to learn where to place it. So who are you becoming? Slow down here. Think about the people in your life. Who do you keep expecting to swim at your death? Who have you been waiting to become someone they're not? Who have you been trying to convince? Who have you been keeping score with? And now ask a different question. What if I stopped keeping score? What if you simply became the person you wanted to be? Kind, honest, generous, strong, compassionate, boundary, courageous, loving, and free. You don't need everyone to understand your depth. And you don't need everyone to give back your energy. And you don't need to appreciate everyone to appreciate your heart. You just need to know your own heart. The right people won't require you to become less loving to feel safe. So cross the ocean. That's what I want you to do. Cross the ocean. Yes, cross it. Send the message. Make the call. Say the thing. Show up. Help someone. Forgive. Encourage. Celebrate. Love. Give. Be generous. Be the person who still believes kindness matters. Be the person who still believes people matter. Be the person who still shows up. But here's the difference. Don't cross the ocean because you expect somebody to cross it back. cross it because that is who you are. And if they meet you halfway, beautiful. And if they don't, that's okay. If they turn around, let them. If they stay, appreciate them. If they can't meet you, stop dragging them into the water. You don't need to become less. You need to become clearer. You don't need a smaller heart. You just need good boundaries. You don't need to love less. You need fewer expectations attached to your love. Honestly, maybe you've been hurt because you loved deeply. Maybe you've been disappointed because you showed up. Maybe you've wondered, why am I always the one who cares? Maybe you've decided you're done. Maybe you're going to stop giving, stop trusting, stop loving, stop crossing oceans. But before you do, ask yourself, do I really want to become less of the person I am because someone else couldn't meet me there? No, you don't. Don't let disappointment rewire your character. Let it refine your wisdom. Keep your heart, protect it. Keep your generosity, direct it wisely, keep your depth. Stop demanding everyone else swim where you are. And if you are someone who loves deeply, don't apologize for that. Your world doesn't need more people calculating exactly what they should give. It needs people willing to give because that's who they are. Remember, you can cross oceans without building a home in someone else's shallow water. Cross the ocean. Give freely, love deeply, show up fully, but release the expectation that everyone will swim like you. Because the lesson isn't to swim less. The lesson is to expect less and discern more. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest freedom isn't finding someone willing to cross the ocean for you. Maybe it's becoming so secure in who you are that you can cross yours without needing anyone else to prove that it was worth the journey. Don't shrink your ocean because someone else only knows how to swim in a puddle. Thanks for hanging out with me today again. Stay soft, get wise, love deeply, set boundaries, give freely, expect realistically. Never let anybody else's inability to meet you at the depth convince you that your depth is something you need to apologize for. Now go be the person you came here to become. Cross the ocean and keep building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimmin Peterson, formerly Conversations with Kimmin. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.